James Storm, who had the opportunity to be in NXT and left to come back to TNA. They're not promoting these guys. A Rockstar Spud.
He's actually pretty good. And he's with, I don't even know his name now, Brutus Clay, his character. They're actually a pretty good tag team to watch.
Are they going to really end this? I mean, even Drew Galloway, who has been able to overcome his WWE run, even Drew Galloway and Bobby Lashley, I mean, that's for the heavyweight championship, and you're promoting as your final segment more Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy fighting. I thought they finished that off. I thought once they had that match where Jeff Hardy jumped off the top of the stage, I thought they were done.
Mm-hmm. It's just crap.
How much more can we take? Like, I understand, yes, Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy will always be good workers and good wrestlers, but to promote them as the main event and to not promote guys that you've brought in here and that you've created. You've created superstars in EC3, in Michael Bennett. Well, Michael Bennett was in
Ring of
Honor, but he's becoming a star of his own in TNA. And Drew Galloway and these rock stars. Why the decay? Why are these guys not getting... Like, Dixie still does not get it.
The problem is she doesn't come from wrestling. That's her problem. And she took over this company thinking that she knows everything, and she doesn't. Like, oh, well, we got the Hardys. They drew big in WWE, so they're going to draw now. Not with these ridiculous gimmicks you're giving them. B, it's not 1999 anymore. They can't be doing these crazy matches like they used to. People want to see actual wrestling. None of these nonsense gimmicks of playing the piano and hanging out in his house and showing the house and having a contract signing at his house. Like, give me a break. And not only that, you're competing now with the WWE, who's starting to grow momentum with all these wrestlers that they're signing. And they're actually wrestling. And they're not having these ridiculous gimmicks where Kevin Owens is coming out in a clown suit or something like that. He's actually Kevin Owens, and he's wrestling and doing his thing, how he wants to do it, and cutting his promos. And you can't do that with guys who, no offense, they're kind of has-beens in my book. They were big in the WWE. They sign these gigantic contracts in TNA, and they try and book them as the main event, and they're not main event status.
That's why I don't know if I want to see Cody Rhodes or Damian Sandow head to TNA and have their character.
Well, if they
destroyed.
go there, they need to have something like in their contract saying they're not doing some goofy gimmick nonsense that is going to screw them over, because they possibly could save TNA. TNA has this great opportunity right now to sign a few good wrestlers that are free agents on the market. Plus, you have other guys who you signed who could actually make the company skyrocket. But you decide, hey, I stole these guys from Vince McMahon, and I'm going to push them and see what I can do with them. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. And it's just frustrating to see, because TNA, you want to see TNA succeed. You want to see them survive. You don't want to hear the stories about another wrestling company being sold off to Vince McMahon because they couldn't cut it in the wrestling world. It's upsetting because, let's be real, WCW was great up until like the late 90s, early 2000s, and it just went to crap. And it's unfortunate because it was mismanaged and all these bloated contracts and too many cooks in the kitchen, I guess you could say, so to speak, because there weren't enough servers who were listening to what the cook had to say. And for that, it suffered greatly, and it put a lot of people out of work, and it's unfortunate.
You took the words right out of my mouth, my friend.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. I really have no more else to say on this. You know, TNA, I mean, they have the world with them. They have the opportunity to just take things to the next level with superstars that they kind of created almost. A lot of them they created. a lot of them, they help rebuild, and they still go to the well. It's going to the well too many times for me.
It's going to the WWE well where they didn't make it. I mean, like I said, there's those guys who got released, but these guys can actually wrestle and still have time on their side and still can cut promos. I'm sorry, but Jeff Hardy is not a promo guy, nor is Matt Hardy. And they were the guys of Extreme. They put their bodies on the line. That's how they drew ticket sales.
They need to be taking a back seat kind of in the way that the Dudley Boys are, where they're putting over younger talent.
Exactly.
And not being the lead in an organization that's kind of floundering right now because they don't know how to handle the stars that they do have, and it's just sad to see. But heading into a different direction as we close the show, I gotta say, man, the WWE really knows how to put documentaries together. Did you see Seth Rollins redesign, rebuild, reclaim? Did you see that?
Not yet. It's on my list.
What a great piece. And how can you not like Seth Rollins after watching this? I mean, if you wanted to put Roman Reigns over, you definitely shouldn't have made this documentary. Such a great way to show him. I mean, it was from they started off with showing him in the back and him arriving at the Prudential Center where we were for Extreme Rules, and then it goes through, him showing him as a little kid, growing up being a wrestling fan, and showing him coming back, recovering from this injury, coming back way in advance, because if we all know, Triple H suffered the same exact injury on his knee, and they show Seth Rollins working so hard to cut it short and try to make it in time for WrestleMania, and just showing him not make it in WrestleMania, you just feel for him. And the training that he did to get back in shape, and him worrying about using the pedigree, showing him practicing the pedigree time after time and being worried about his knee buckling again. And have you noticed that this pedigree has been giving these injuries with the knees?
Yeah, I don't understand why they can't use a curb stomp again.
I thought the curb stomp was such a better move than that.
So did I. And I feel like it was kind of just taken out of Triple H's book because he was Triple H's guy, but what do I know? But speaking of documentaries, have you seen the new documentary? Well, I wouldn't call it new, but it's new on Netflix, and the resurrection of Jake Roberts, Jake the Snake.
Saw it, cried 3 times.
It's such a touching movie.
Inspiration.
Definitely inspiration, and kudos to DDP for what he has done, how he's taken Jake the Snake into his home, a guy who basically took him under the wing when he was trying to get into wrestling and gave him all the motivation and all the inspiration and how he could perform better and be the guy who
Scott
he
Hall
was.
Too.
Yeah, and then he took Scott Hall. Scott Hall was probably days committing suicide, I would say. Because the fact that people were, they said in the documentary, if you haven't watched it, Sean Waltman, X-Pac, gave DDP a call and said he's really worried about Scott Hall, that he seems out of it and he's not really answering to anybody. So they made the phone call with Jake right by his side and said, hey, you should come down to Atlanta and come live with us for a while. And him doing that, I think it saved his life.
Yep, and I mean, I tweeted out that so many emotions watching at Jake Snake movie. That's the movie's Twitter handle. One thing I do know is that Jake the Snake DDT is an inspiration to never give up. Thanks, Jake, and they retweeted it. The Jake the Snake movie Twitter handle retweeted that out, and I'll say this real quick. About a couple of years ago, right before Jake the Snake went in to the what they call that house, I
know it's like DDP's house, his yoga place.
Yeah, the accountability house. That a few I don't know if it was a few months before that or a year before that, I went to a autograph signing in Queens.
Okay,
and I met Jake the Snake, and it wasn't looking too good at the time, and just to see how far he's come, and the best part about it is he's not perfect. And he struggled in between all these times, but has still been able to come from it. And, he's re-emerged with his family and his grandkids. And seeing that last image I'll always remember is him putting up his Hall of Fame ring and his granddaughter laying smiling on his side. It was one of the best, most inspirational documentaries I've ever seen. DDP, I mean, if you ever get to listen to this, wow, man, you are amazing, dude. Just
really
having been able to take these two in, turn their lives around, and just them knowing that the fans do care about them.
Yeah, and that's one thing he kept saying throughout the documentary. And it was like he was giving them tough love, and that's what they needed. They needed to hear that people actually cared about them and wanted to, like even when they showed the GoFundMe page, and they couldn't believe in one night how much they raised
out of the 8,000. Unbelievable. And on that note, we're going to end this show. We're going to end this show on a high. If you haven't seen those, go to WWE Network, watch Seth Rollins 24/7, redesign, rebuild, reclaim. Then go to Netflix and see the resurrection of Jake the Snake. It's something you surely are not going to want to miss. On that note, we are going to sign off here. It's been a great show, my friend.
Oh, yes.
I think next week, I talked about this before, but when we do our Facebook Live next week, I want to kind of do a what-if scenario, a what-if on what's going to happen with the brand extension. So we'll get into what happens to the women's division and the tag team division on a Facebook Live edition next Tuesday on Ringside Rumble Radio. I'm Anthony the Antman, Keith Logan the Loganator standing right next to me. Remember, listen to Ringside Rumble Radio on Spreaker.com and free on iTunes. Follow us on Twitter at Ringside Rumble Radio. Like us on Facebook by searching Ringside Rumble Radio on the search engine. It's been a great show. Thanks for listening, and we will tune in to you guys and listen to you guys. Talk to you guys next week. We won't be listening, but we'll be talking to you next week. Take care, everyone.